Welcome to Dilli Dali. I am S. Gopalakrishnan. It was quite accidental that I met a gentleman called Shalabh Gahlaut. We were on our return journey after a Himalayan trek for a week, and we had to stay in Rudraprayag for a day. And there only we met Shalabh, a very passionate man in his early 50s. He's very passionate about all the Indian rivers and all Indian mountains, especially the rivers in the Himalayan region and the Himalayan mountains. He is a walking encyclopedia of the geographical conditions of the Himalayan region, its rivers, its mountain ranges, and all. Very passionately, he was talking to Dilli Dali on the threats being faced by the Himalayan region by the human intervention. I don't want to give more introduction to him. Let us listen to him. Welcome to Dilli Dali, Shalabh. I'm so happy to have you in this conversation. I know you are not basically from Uttarakhand. How did you land in this beautiful bank of Alakananda?
I was very lucky. I spent my childhood all over India because my father worked for the government of India. And at some stage when I dropped out of college because I was learning to be a dentist in Bangalore, and then I dropped out of the dental college, and suddenly I was free. There was no pressure on me. You should become a doctor. My family told me, wow, he will make a good dentist. I had not thought of what I wanted to do myself, but after dropping out, it gave me this complete freedom, and I was very lucky to stumble across the river adventure sports industry, and I did a small summer job in the mountains and saw this possibility of working on the river, of not working in an office, not working on a desk, not working in a factory, not working in a hospital, but working on the river. And it was better than my wildest dreams as a child. And I joined the rafting, kayaking industry and learned how to kayak. And it took me from the eastern jungles of Arunachal Pradesh to Leh Ladakh, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh. Took me to rivers all over the Himalayas, which I feel is the biggest blessing I've managed to make for myself. And then at some stage when my father retired from the government, he got 30 years life savings, and he said, here is the money, do what you want. And I came and settled and built a small home and a guest house on the banks of the Alakananda river in Garhwal in 2009. For the last 11-12 years I've been living in one place and been working in the mountains for the last 25 years.
No, while you were talking about the Rishi Ganga that accident last year, you mentioned about how man created this tragedy. How do you relate? What message Rishi Ganga is giving to humanity?
It's a very pertinent question because in February last year, a very, very big chunk of mountain of the Rongti mountain, its shoulder, which was more than a cubic meter of rock and ice, collapsed, probably because of tectonic movement, definitely because of climate change and global warming, and as a sign of things to come. The mountain crashed down 3 kilometers in height and released the power of a few atom bombs. The flood which came down has been seen on video, and though the drama was very, very real, sadly the message hasn't gone through. Now, this thing happened in the area around Nandadevi, which is India's most sacred, divine mother mountain. And this happened right in her Anchal, so as to say. So the message has come straight from Nandadevi. This message has existed for a very long time. When Gaura Devi and the ladies of Lata Rainy villages started the Chipko movement, the tree hugging movement, decades ago, at the same very spot, in the same very village, where women were ready to give up their lives for saving a single tree, a dam was constructed very conveniently in the Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve, which is a World Heritage place of importance. And it was no surprise that this unimaginably big flood, wave of anger from the Nanda Devi Mata herself came down and broke the dam on the Rishi Ganga. Of course, Gaura Devi is smiling and also crying that such folly exists in the 21st century. As a nation, we have moved on. India is not the nation I was born into. We were born into a fairly poor nation. My whole family would drive a scooter. My father had a scooter till he was my age. And today we have 4 cars, we have washing machines, we have the best of everything available in the world. But we cannot continue to take our natural heritage for granted. Our natural heritage, once it is lost, it will be lost forever. So, understanding development, understanding infrastructure, I really would like to see infrastructure in place to handle the garbage which is created in the mountains, on the roadside, and even in villages which are a 50-kilometer walk from the road. The most pristine villages are full of trash today. Who is responsible? I think the FMCG industry needs to get its act together, get its scientists and their HR department and their senior directors together and take an initiative, because the onus lies on them. Each wrapper has a name printed on it. We know who has profited from plastic being sold in every corner of the Himalayas. It's time, before there is litigation, that we take ownership for our natural beauty, for the mountains, for the forests in the center of India, for even the desert, for the seaside. And we understand that India has been blessed by tremendous nature. That is what gives our people, our nation richness, our culture's richness comes eventually from nature. And if that nature is going to be sullied, if it is going to be dirtied and ruined forever, I think it is a matter of great shame for me as an Indian. At the same time, Corona has given a lot of impetus to Indian people traveling within their own country, not traveling to Thailand, not flying to New Zealand, but starting to see the corners of their country. As we see how beautiful our country is, we have to see what is required to save our nature. We can all see it, and it's time for influential people, and it's the masses, it's the millions of Indian people who are influential. We have to, each one of us has to make sure that our nature especially in the Himalayas, in the Western Ghats, is protected now. It's my pratna. It's my pratna to each one of you, to each one of us, that we can keep our nature intact and even improve it from what it is right now.
Shalabh, when it comes to the development projects of various governments in this Himalayan region, I have a question in the background of the Rishi Ganga incident. Ultimately, who is going to win, Alakananda or the aspirations of the modern urban man?
I really think that the civil engineers who have signed on the project planning for these dams, they should be examined very carefully, and their licenses as civil engineers should be taken away, because the battle is definitely, the first round has been won by Alakananda, by Ma Alakananda, and the engineers and the ACC cement and everything else, the best that was applied in these dams, was blown away like a matchbox, like something a child would have built. So in front of the fury of nature and in front of the fury of the river, man's actions are not really going to hold for very long.
Okay, then why then these people, the well-meaning politicians or not well-meaning politicians or engineers or town planners, they are trying to apply the same logic of the making of Gurgaon or making of Bangalore or making of new urban cities in the central India or the plains in a region like Himalayas?
Unfortunately, policy is made at the highest levels in our country, and the local understanding sometimes might have been ignored when it comes to the mountains. In the Himalayas, we need to understand that the scale of development and the style of development which has happened in the plains of India, in Gujarat for example, in Haryana for example, or in Bengal or in Bihar or in Uttar Pradesh or Karnataka or Kerala, the kind of development that we've had is not something which would be a sustainable model for the Himalayas. If we want to protect the Himalayas as an outdoor recreational sacred pilgrimage area, we will have to maintain its ecology. And we have seen that development and maintaining the ecology has not really worked. It has not really worked in other places. We know the state of the air in Delhi, we know the state of the lakes in Bangalore, we know the state of the mangroves in Mumbai. And that format of development which has been implemented in the rest of India, it would be extremely foolish of us to think that that system is going to work in the mountains of Uttarakhand and Ladakh and Himachal Pradesh. The train and the metro is perhaps a bridge too far. It's not going to really work out up here in the mountains, and it's time we look at, yes, development is essential, but I would look at health development. I would look at developing the system to deal with garbage. I would look at education. I would look at hospitals and look at those aspects of development and implement those parts of development first. Get the people healthy, get the people well educated first, get the nature cleaned up first, give skill training. We cannot look at the Himalayas and see an untapped resource. If we are going to look at the Himalaya like this, yes, it is the richest part of the country. It is extremely rich, the Himalayas, but they are extremely fragile. They are extremely fragile and they are divine. I do not think it is our generation and our it is not our right to take a decision which impacts our generations to come. If we scour the mountains here with mines and rampant resource development and dams, where we will be judged harshly by our great grandchildren.
Rivers or Himalayas, which is more ancient?
There is this accepted theory that mountains, the Himalayan range was born later, and the Sutlej, the Indus, the Brahmaputra, perhaps the Ganga and the Karnali rivers in the Himalaya have existed before the Himalayas were born. Perhaps even Kailash, where these mountains flow out of, Kailash existed with these rivers flowing out of it before the collision of the Indian subcontinent with the Eurasian plate. The Himalayas were not even born. This was the bottom of the Sea of Tethys. How we know this is that the Himalayas are a watershed. It's a chain of mountains. So the rivers from the north are supposed to drain to the north, and the rivers from the south of the Himalayas are supposed to drain to the south. But that is not what happens. All the waters from the north of the Himalayas drain south through the Karnali, through the Brahmaputra, the Indus and the Sutlej, being the major drainages. They catch all the water and cut the deepest gorges on earth right through the main Himalayan range to flow south. That can only be possible if the river existed before the mountain chain was born. That is perhaps also why it's not the highest mountain, but Kailash is the most special mountain in the Indian mythology and beliefs. The home of Lord Shiva is not considered any other mountain but Kailash.
And when it comes to Nandadevi, what is the geological importance of this mighty peak?
Nandadevi is the most iconic landmass on the Indian subcontinent. Of course, Nepal and the Karakorams do claim the highest mountains in the Himalaya in the world, K2, which is in the Karakoram, and Everest, which is in the Khumbu region of Nepal, but solely within India. Nandadevi, one, for being the physical embodiment of Parvati, the consort, the mountain consort of Lord Shiva. Two, for her beauty. Nandadevi is not only the highest mountain within India, she is extremely beautiful. Thereafter, she is surrounded and protected by a chain and a circle of mountains. Nandadevi, you can get her darshan from far away, but to get to Nandadevi is near impossible. It is only for the very professional, serious mountaineer to get to the base of Nandadevi. She has a sanctuary, like what is in a mandir, a garbha griha, or the inner sanctum of a temple. The Nandadevi temple, and I promise you it's the biggest temple in India. It has a sanctuary made by God, by nature, by whatever you like to believe is divine. I like to believe as nature is divine for me. And Nandadevi, God has made, she has her own sanctuary, a place, a mystical place, a place which is extremely hard to go to. Up the Rishi Ganga valley, you have to go up the Rishi Ganga gorge. The area has been shut down since the 80s. Since the 80s, this area is been shut down, and perhaps been even given the opportunity of that sanctity of not having selfie clicking, selfish people who call themselves pilgrims or tourists who come and leave trash in the mountains. Luckily, those people are not going into the Nandadevi sanctuary, and her sacredness has been maintained. But that is only the inner sanctum. The sanctity of the nature, the sanctity of the Himalaya extends a lot beyond Nandadevi. Every single mountain is Tapobhumi over here, is Devbhumi here. This is the most divine part of our country, and perhaps
Now, are you worried about using such spiritual terminologies, words connected with a particular religion when we discuss about the sociological issues and the environmental impacts of human intervention into this area, vis-a-vis the present political climate where one majoritarian religious political party is controlling everything, and you use these terminologies. I know from where it comes to you. It comes so honestly, just like any other individual, any other person who was born and brought up in Devbhumi talks about Alakananda or Nandadevi. You talk like that, though you are not from this part. But when it goes outside, you know what is happening in the plains and what is happening in the political arena. What sort of terminologies these political pundits are using these days, and you are talking in the same language in another context. How do you see my question?
I understand what you're getting to,
Huh.
and I think the question and the answers are not about religion. These are not religious questions. These are humanitarian questions, because as a human needs to understand his place in the whole part, in the whole chakra, in the whole cycle of ecology and nature. So, yes, in a deep understanding of Hinduism that I have been lucky to have in my own way, and my belief has taught me that the river is sacred. I have not been taught through any book that anybody is more sacred than the Ma, nature. So is that I think being an ancient belief, I would not even say religion, but the Hindu or the Sanatani or the Adivasi or the tribal of this country has a very deep relationship with nature through prehistory, through time. I would think the most removed we have been from our root essence of understanding the bhutas, understanding dharti, understanding akash. We are the furthest today.
Please don't, don't take it like that. No, I honestly understand. I sincerely agree to what you are saying, and from where these words come. Uh, but as I come from Delhi, I live there, and I know what is happening there, and what is happening all over India. Therefore, the question came to you not as a doubting point. The question came to you for just clarifying. Uh,
That is exactly what I'm trying to
Yes.
explain, because I've noticed I have noticed what has happened to most of the places in India. I know what Delhi was. It is my ancestors' villages in Delhi. I know Gurgaon, when you had to drive through the forest from Palam It was a long way before the Maruti factory happened on that road. I saw Gurgaon when it was a gaon, without many of the problems which are there today. Places which were sacred earlier, village lakes, small places for swimming in the village which were sacred in the past, do not exist today. That cannot be our agenda for the Himalayas. That we cannot go and do what happened to the lakes of Bangalore, to the mountains of the Himalayas, because if we do what we do normally, what our track record has been, we are going to completely ruin the Himalayas forever. It will take a few hundred years for the mountains to recover. So it really just comes down to understanding in a very practical, scientific manner. And if you want to do that out of belief from your heart, you can do that out of belief from your heart, because everybody loves nature like they love their mother. I've been in close contact with different cultures all around the world. They have different books and different beliefs. All of them go on picnic. You pick up any culture, any religion, you ask them, what do you want to do? It's a beautiful day. They want to go to nature. Any culture. So there is this love in the human being deep down inside for nature. And at the same time, we can be extremely violent towards nature, because somebody wants to become a mining magnate, somebody wants to become a billionaire, make a dam, invest in hydropower, invest in mining, invest in infrastructure, invest in trains. Yes, because it will be good money for you, but it's a public resource. It's a public resource that belongs to our children. I do not think that anybody in this country, may it be the industry, may it be the government, may it be the courts, I do not think anybody has the right to not protect the Himalayas and deny the generations that are going to come after us and give them a broken Himalaya. I don't think anybody in this country has the right to do that.
I have only two more questions to you, Shalabh. One is, when we were talking yesterday, you mentioned about how to handle garbage in Himalayas, and you mentioned about the right to just like right to information, there is a right to have a clean environment. Suppose whether many ministries have failed in this country. Therefore, suppose if there is a ministry for handling garbage, in the light of these Swachh Bharat experience and all, I'm asking you, what should be the policy on handling garbage in the Himalayas or all other parts of the country?
I think it's a very ripe time, and India is a mature country, and politics in our country are mature enough today to start making very meaningful changes. And one change that we definitely need is there are far-flung villages in the mountains which are visited by people trekking. Sometimes people are skiing over there, and sometimes there are guest houses deep inside the mountains. And there is also local population which lives there and buys biscuit packets and cigarette packets and a packet for all the packets. Mobile phones, old mobile phones, they don't last more than few years. Old electronic items. Somebody living in the middle of the forest, somebody living on the riverside. I think also the forest and the river and the village, which is far-flung and in this highly fragile Himalayan area, we all deserve a waste management system, not on paper, but on the ground, a system that really works. Like we've had fantastic vaccination happening in the state. I would think the education also in Uttarakhand is amazing. But personally, I'm a taxpayer. Our business pays GST, even though we don't reach the limit, the minimum amount, and we generate employment in the mountains. Migration out of the mountains is a big thing, and we have to carry our garbage out from here. Either burn it or put it in a truck, take it 200 kilometers to Rishikesh. Nobody comes to take any garbage from rural areas. Do our children, do our forests, do our streams not have a right to extract a very simple, civilized service, I would think, from the industry, which is creating these items of plastic which are being found in the mountains, these empty bottles courtesy of PepsiCo and Coca-Cola. They have to share some expertise, some manpower, some money, and have an effort to make sure that these products, plastic waste products, are collected from the deepest of mountains. And we are not begging for this. I think it is high time that there is some parity between making money and taking care of the environment. We cannot have only let's make money, let's make money. How do we make more money? How do we make more money? That cannot be the only agenda for our nation. India also needs to balance the creation of plastic with the recycling of plastic, with the collection of plastic, by keeping it out of the rivers, by keeping it out of the streams. I live in the catchment of the Ganges, of the Ganga itself. We've had Namami Gange, we've had Swachh Bharat. Yes, people have got toilets. But the rubbish, the plastic rubbish of all the big towns in the Alakananda Valley and the Bhagirathi Valley goes into the river. Anybody who does not believe me, please come and visit. I will prove you wrong very easily. So it's high time we understand that we have to safeguard our natural resource, our natural heritage, our forests, our streams, our rivers, our animals, our birds, our insects. We have to safeguard these for the future. If we leave a country like we leave a park in Delhi or Bombay full of litter when we're gone, all this is going to be gone in 20 years. In 20, 30 years, the Himalayas are going to be just full of filth. The glaciers, the snow, everything's going to be full of plastic. There's going to be microplastic inside the flowers of the trees. It will be too late then. We have time now. We have the money. We have the will. We have every reason to save the Himalayas.
I'm coming from Kerala, and we have a lot of hydroelectric projects, and some are one of the oldest dams is in Kerala, one of the oldest dams in India. But vis-a-vis the dams in Himalayas, what makes the dams in the Western Ghats or the other parts of the country different?
The Western Himalaya, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, these are very active mountains. If you look at the terrain over here, everything is breaking constantly. The ice, the glaciers are the biggest known erosive force on earth. Every valley over here in the mountains in the Himalayas has a glacier on top. The glacier is moving, breaking rock, eroding stuff, breaking the whole valley. It creates a lot of debris in the form of gravel, sand, and rock. The rivers drain the debris of the Himalaya into the ocean, while depositing a fair amount of fertility in UP, in Bihar, in Bengal, in Assam, in their floodplains. This alluvial silt which comes from the mountains is essential for the ecology of the river right to the ocean. I can think of the river right here, and it's very easy to see. But to understand the whole problem, I have to see the river runs from here right past Bengal into the Bay of Bengal. It carries sand, fish, nutrients, cold. It carries some coldness from the mountains into the plains. The river has many roles which we do not even know of today. They haven't been completely researched and explored. The icy water of the Himalayan river remains cold for hundreds of kilometers after it has gone into even the plains of India. So it's also moving a certain amount of cold from the mountains down. Perhaps it also can sometimes take the heat from somewhere and move things around. There's a thermal system as well. What is definitely happening is a debris system. And the dams in the Himalaya are getting full of silt. The reservoirs are not being able to hold the quantity of water that they were planned for. Yes, the data that they were given was old. It's from the last 100 years. We have to make dams today, not looking at what happened 100 years ago, but looking at what all should we expect in the 100 years to come. Extreme climatic events of the scale that we cannot imagine. I can promise you, you can check with the best hydrologists in the world, that the moment you make barrages and dams on a river, the flow of the river is controlled and restricted, and at some stage, the dam will break. Dam collapses have happened around the world. In a place like the Himalayas, there is a very high possibility. And we've almost dammed everything in the Himalayas now. There are a few rivers left. The Pindar River in the Alakananda catchment coming from the Pindari Glacier is one of the rivers in Uttarakhand which doesn't have a single dam on it so far. And I pray that it remains like that. But you never know.
Yes.
But you never know. We can see the folly in building dams. The companies which have constructed dams like JP Hydropower, JP has left the hydropower sector for very good reason. It's not sustainable. It's just taking public money, giving it to contractors, making a mess on the river, and walking off like you don't have anything to do with the river. I think we need to look at development seriously.
Thank you, Shalabh, for this quality time and very passionate river lover, Himalaya lover, and thank you for giving this much of time to us. And we wish you all the best in your engagement with this beautiful location. My last question to you is: are you an optimist?
I am a complete optimist because I see. I live in nature and I notice a few things about nature I want to share with you. Its strength, its resilience, its adaptability. That does not mean we take it for granted. But I believe that the situation will get better, not worse.
Thank you.